Thank you for joining me for this month's Curators Tour. I'm Britt Mitchell, Associate Curator of Exhibitions, and today we will be exploring Truthful Illusions, Realism in the Age of Abstraction. Throughout the 20th century, artists absorbed new ideas in philosophy, politics, and aesthetics, spurred in part by European-American cultural exchange and giving rise to what we call, quote, modern art. Through modern movements like Cubism and surrealism, artists rendered their rapidly changing world with varying degrees of abstraction. The Spanish surrealist Salvador Dali, working in the late 1920s to 1970s, illustrated the vivid inner world of dreams and the subconscious as theorized by the neurologist Sigmund Freud, while other artists, influenced by Marxist philosophy, saw traditional forms of art and their standards as oppressive. The years leading up to the two world wars engulfed Europe in various forms of totalitarianism. American abstract expressionist Jackson Pollock, disillusioned by these repressive regimes, saw art as the embodiment of freedom and sought to throw off all of its constraints. For Pollock, even awareness of painting was a constraint, writing in 1947, quote, "When I am in my painting, I am not aware of what I am doing." This quest for pure art, unconstrained by standards of skill or even consciousness, was a century-long attempt at answering these questions. What is art, and how does it represent reality? This exhibition of what is called realism provides another answer with work by artists whose obvious technical skills supports and does not constrain their artistic intent. They create by the forms, patterns, and embodied nature of the world, savoring what can be seen and showing us its truth. This exhibition has been curated into three categories of subject matter: people, featuring the figure in various settings; places, including landscapes and interiors; and things, such as still lives in their various forms. This exhibition is curated by Amanda Shepard, VP and COO, and is supported by the Edward D. and Ione Auer Foundation. The first category we focus on is people. For hundreds of years, artists have found purpose in depicting humans as subject matter, to create a record of a person or study the complexity of the human figure, to capture emotions conveyed by faces and bodies, or to create a narrative in which the person plays a role in a story. The unique power of the human being as an artistic subject lies in its ability to connect with the viewer. In his Cubist works, Pablo Picasso presented human figures not as characters in a narrative or examples of human beauty, but as deconstructed objects, reconstructed to evoke the person's inner essence. Contrary to Picasso, the American artist Milton Avery presented the spirits of figures primarily through color, composition, and a poetic but simplistic painterly style, drawing out the mood of his subjects through shape and color. The artist exhibited merry anatomical accuracy and traditional narrative techniques with the intentions of the modernists, to evoke an essence or reveal an inner state. The first artist within this category is Yagal Oziri, who paints in a photorealistic style, which means his works are meant to look like photographs. The photographic quality of his work is not just in his commitment to details, but also in the composition and expression of his subject. In this work, the young woman's intense gaze seems frozen by the camera, but her wind-blown hair and bustling surroundings signal the non-stop bustle of city life. Oziri is inspired by the Pre-Raphaelites of the 1850s, a group of 7 English artists who sought to bring naturalism back to art instead of the idealism taught in the European academies. Many pre-Raphaelite works depicted strikingly beautiful and contemplative women, set in nature that suggested the artist's desire for both beauty and seriousness in art. The second artist we look at in this category is Andrea Coach. Andrea Coach's precise lifelike paintings are considered magic realism in that they are rooted in observable reality, but with a mysterious, dreamlike twist. Inspired by the landscape of her home state of Michigan, Coach's work often places women in domestic environments where the wind is howling, dogs are barking, and a house burns far in the distance. Coach draws parallels between human experience and the mysteries of nature, using the American landscape to explore nature's sacredness and the human soul. In Tempest, a lone woman calmly captains a ship while the seagulls signal wildly at the storm. Is she wearing an apron with her fine nautical jacket? Why is she holding a conch shell when she should be steering the ship? The ambiguity of her narratives are meant to lead the viewer into the mood of the painting and into the chaotic places we hold internally. The second category we are exploring is places, landscape, cities, interiors, and imagined worlds. The idea of place is formed by our position in one part of the world or another, the contours of which are defined by our perspective. Places are uniquely human because we assign meaning to them. Artists over the centuries have further defined the places of the world by showing us how they experience them. Many of the first American abstractionists, like John Marin and Marsden Hartley, spent the early 1900s in Europe's progressive intellectual centers, seeking freedom in their work. Marin's mountain scenery evoked feelings of the place rather than its physical features, and Hartley used color to express the soul of the landscape. While the abstractionists emphasized the immaterial realm of emotion, the realists integrated the language of natural proportion and properties of light to embody all facets of reality, both through our senses and subjective experience. The first work in this category is George Deems Vermeer's A Lady Seated at a Virginal, Lady Removed. George Charles Deem Jr. always knew he wanted to be an artist, but had few resources outside the art in the Catholic churches of his youth. He eventually made it to Chicago to study at the Art Institute in 1952, but a year later he was drafted into the Army. During his 2 years in service, he visited Florence, Venice, Paris, and London, taking in the masterworks from some of the world's most significant artists that heavily influenced his later work. In this work, Deem reconstructs the setting of Johannes Vermeer's A Young Woman Seated at a Virginal from 1670, except he has neither included the young woman nor her instrument. He also left the upper right corner undone, a reference to modern art's de-emphasizing of artistic skill. Deem's choice to edit this masterpiece relies upon our memory of the real Vermeer and at the same time constructs for it a new meaning. The next work in the places category is John Seale's Sierra National Forest 1. In this work by Los Angeles-based artist John Seale, we observe a moment in the wilderness, a site ravaged by wildfire. The beauty of the scene conflicts with the shock of destruction, as shown by acres of blackened stumps. On close inspection, elements of this painting omit details on purpose, as if Seale prefers we see the universal landscape instead of the particulars of a specific location. Seale's paintings, both beautiful and unsettling, portray two realities. In the first, the scarred earth has begun to regenerate and welcome back new life, including human beings. In the second, we witness continued cycles of devastation with seemingly no end. In this reality, the presence of a single shiny black stump is a disquieting stain on a pristine setting that speaks to the vulnerability of the earth to human activity. Seale's paintings take no position on this play of realities, they simply present the two in coexistence. The third and final category is things, still life, and trompe-l'oeil. The objects in our life can carry with them profound meaning and serve as symbols for deeper truths. Artists attest to the meaning which we attach to objects through the genre of still life, composing groups of inanimate objects to communicate with the viewer. After hundreds of years, the still life remains an important way for artists to demonstrate their skill or tell a story. Many modernists use the still lifes to experiment with proportion and perspective, applying broad brushstrokes and flattening the object's dimensions. In Alfred Maurer's early 20th century still life, a square table appears to tilt toward the viewer, collapsing the space to display the pears on its top with no illusion of depth. Both Maurer and Dutch artist Vincent van Gogh used thick, dark outlines to delineate objects rather than realistic shadow and detail. The artists of this section revere the illusory techniques and draw the viewer into a visual journey of exploring details and delighting in the illusions created on a flat surface. The first work we explore in this category is Gary Herby's Sunny Day Today. A specific genre of still life, trompe-l'oeil, French for fool the eye, presents objects as if they are really in front of us. Traditional rules of trompe-l'oeil are that objects must be painted at their natural size, and that the background must not have depth so that the objects will appear like they are extending towards the viewer. Herby moves beyond the rules of the genre to incorporate modern principles into his work, such as taking objects out of their original context to construct new narratives. As his objects often seem to float above their background, he coined his style levitational realism. Sunny Day Today is an homage to Herby's stepfather who encouraged his interest in art and bought him his first art set. His stepfather passed away when he was 15, causing Herby to produce very little art out of grief for nearly a decade. This painting shows objects from Herby's happy childhood in the 1950s with his stepfather, including a toy train that he gave him as a young boy. The last painting we will look at today is Maria Tamsula's Mothership. Maria Tamsula was raised in East Chicago, Indiana, where she was immersed in the dramatic colonial Baroque styles of the Mexican Catholic churches of her childhood. The rich colors and elaborate ornamentation contrasted with the dark interiors of the church, an effect that she mimics in her own remarkably executed paintings. In these churches were images of saints, many of them with idealized figures but shown in the horrific scenes of their martyring. Tamsula's flowers were standing in for those saints, their beauty tortured by pins, hooks, or petals splayed to their breaking point. Tamsula challenges the boundaries between the physical and the spiritual, as suggested by the glowing, otherworldly background that suggests eternity. To see more realism works up close and personal, visit the museum before Truthful Illusions, Realism in the Age of Abstraction ends on July 5th.